Cambridge Advanced Level Economics Revision. Unit 8, Government Microeconomic Intervention. This lesson is on government policies to achieve efficient resource allocation and correct market failure. The free market is expected to allocate resources efficiently. However, this may not be so, a situation known as market failure. Market failure requires government intervention, but there is no guarantee that the intervention will work. In fact, government intervention may worsen market failure. Policies to correct externalities. Externalities are spillover benefits or cost from production or consumption. The four types of externalities are positive production externalities, negative production externalities, positive consumption externalities, and negative consumption externalities. The policies to correct externalities include indirect taxes, subsidies, regulations, pollution permits, property rights, and information provision. Policies for correcting negative production externalities. Negative production externalities may arise from pollution or environmental damage by producers. One of the policies for correcting negative production externalities is indirect tax. An indirect tax is a tax on goods and services. If it is charged per unit, it is known as specific tax. If it is charged as a percentage of the price, it is ad valorem tax. This is in line with the principle, polluters pay principle. Polluters should be held responsible for any harm caused to third parties. Tax should be equal to the marginal external cost, MEC. However, externality is difficult to value. If the tax is less than MEC, market failure is partially corrected. If the tax is more than MEC, it becomes worse. Also, indirect tax won't work for inelastic demand. Ad valorem tax on producers. The initial supply curve is MPC, price is PF, and quantity is QF. The supply curve becomes MSC when pollution tax is added. Price increases to PO, while quantity decreases to QO. Total tax paid is area of rectangle P OKQPR. The consumer's tax burden is POKSBF. The producer's share of the tax burden is PFSQPR. Tax charge, vertical distance between K and Q. This is equal to the value of the negative externality or marginal external cost. However, it is difficult to value negative externality, such as pollution. In addition, the producer can always pass the greater part of the tax to consumers if demand is inelastic, thereby making the policy ineffective. The use of regulations to correct negative production externalities. Regulations are rules, laws, standards to change behavior and correct market failure. For example, there is a standard on the amount of carbon emission or waste to be dumped. Failure to comply results in payment of fine by the company. However, people have to be employed to monitor compliance, which makes regulations costly. Big companies and voters don't really like some regulations because compliance requires some spending. This may cost the government in elections. Regulations can create a black or an underground market. Deregulation. Reducing or eliminating some regulations encourages the entry of more firms. It encourages competition. Also, new firms tend to be more efficient, for example, new energy vehicle producers. Pollution and prices drop, causing the exit of the old firms that cannot reduce their pollution and be price competitive. Property rights. Ownership right to certain assets is given to reduce negative externalities. Property rights establish claims over the assets, e.g., water, land, or air. It determines how the asset is used, enjoyed, or transferred. Property rights can be explained further by the theory, tragedy of the commons. This is a situation whereby resources are used by an individual in a way that is harmful to others. It happens to valuable resources that are accessible to many people, e.g., ocean, forest, etc. It leads to resources being overused or degraded. Examples of tragedy of the commons. Overfishing causes unsustainable fish population. Logging causes deforestation and harms habitat. If the community is given property right, it can sue any company that causes pollution or negative externalities. It is usually more successful if those with property rights act as a group, especially when the polluting firm is big. Ideally, the compensation should be equal to the amount of pollution created. But if the company has property right, the community has to compensate the firm to reduce its pollution or pay the company to leave the area. Pollution permits. A pollution permit authorizes a business to pollute up to a certain level. It is called tradable permit because it can be bought and sold. A firm that does not exhaust its allowance can sell to those that have exhausted theirs. It is also known as a cap and trade system. If price of the permit is low, there will be no incentive to reduce emissions and be environmentally friendly. Let's consider what happens when there is an increase in demand for the permit. Demand increases from D1 to D2. The price rises from P1 to P2. The supply of the permit is fixed. A fall in demand from D1 to D2 reduces the price from P1 to P2. The supply of the permit can also be reduced. This will lead to a rise in price. Correcting positive production externalities. Third parties enjoy spillover benefits from production, e.g., internet and other inventions. Positive production externalities, subsidies. Subsidy increases quantity produced and reduces the price. Subsidy should be equal to external benefit, but it is difficult to estimate. If subsidy is too low, there is no complete correction of market failure. There is a positive production externality as MPC is greater than MSC. The quantity produced by the free market is Q1 at price P1. Subsidy increases the quantity produced to Q2 and reduces the price to P2. This leads to allocative efficiency. The total subsidy is P2P3km. Information provision. The government can provide information on costs, prices, and how to export. This encourages firms to produce more. The government can create awareness about the firm's product to stimulate demand. Correcting negative consumption externalities. These are spillover costs imposed on third parties from consumption, e.g., effect of smoking on others. Negative consumption externalities, indirect taxes. MSB is below MPB because of negative consumption externalities. The market equilibrium occurs where MPB and MPC are equal. This produces price PF and quantity QF. The social optimum quantity is Q0, from where MSB and MSC are equal. An indirect tax equal to AB will make the supply curve to shift to the left from S1 to S2, raising the price to P0 and reducing quantity to Q0. Negative consumption externalities, minimum price. Minimum price is above PF, where MSC is equal to MPB. The price elasticity of demand determines its effectiveness. Creating awareness about the dangers of goods with negative consumption externality reduces demand. For example, information on packaging provides information on nutritional quality of the product. Combining information provision with taxes can be more effective. Negative consumption externalities, regulations. Age limit can be specified for consumption of demerit goods. Consumption in public can be restricted. Plain packaging for cigarettes is also used. Production quota is another type of regulation for negative consumption externalities. It limits the quantity that can be produced. It raises the price and reduces demand. Licensing suppliers controls the quantity supplied. However, it can create an informal market for the product. Correcting positive consumption externalities. Positive consumption externalities are benefits to third parties arising from consumption, e.g. education, healthcare, and is subsidized by a scheme. Corrections include information provision, direct provision, subsidies, maximum price, and compulsory basic education. Positive consumption externalities, subsidies. Before intervention, price is PF, quantity is QF from where MPB is equal to MPC. Subsidy is the vertical distance, DE. Subsidy shifts the supply curve from S1 to S2, lowering price to P0 and raising the quantity to Q0. The new quantity is the best quantity for the society, the social optimum quantity. It is desirable for the society to have more of the product, e.g. education. Positive consumption externalities, maximum price. A maximum price below PF can increase the demand for the good with external benefits. PF is the free market price. Other methods of correcting positive consumption externalities. Direct provision by the government, e.g. compulsory education up to a certain age. Provision of information on benefits of goods with external benefits. Other tools, nudging, presenting choices in a better way for people to willingly make better choices. No taxation or regulations. For example, providing information on carbon footprints will make people willingly cut down their air travel. Providing information on the benefits of cycling. Also, putting fruits at the entrance of the cafeteria could encourage people to eat them. Nudging is effective when used with other policies. Other tools, nationalization. Nationalization is the transfer of ownership from private sector to public sector, e.g., mass transit. Public enterprises are run in the interest of the public, e.g., less pollution, equitable access, no private monopoly, and no duplication. Other tools, privatization, is the transfer of ownership from public sector to private sector. It breaks up state monopoly for efficient allocation of resources. It lowers prices due to competition. However, it may create a private monopoly that raises price and lowers output. Government failure in microeconomic intervention. Government failure occurs if government intervention results in welfare loss. Intervention does not work, it worsens the situation or produces unpleasant consequences. Government failure, imperfect information. The government acts based on incomplete or wrong information. Therefore, it is difficult to impose the correct amount of tax because negative externalities are difficult to value. It is also difficult to estimate demand when providing merit or public goods. Government failure, disincentive of taxes. High-income taxes discourage hard work. High corporate taxes may discourage investment. Government failure, political self-interest. Policies sometimes are designed for the purpose of winning elections, not to maximize welfare. Government failure, policy conflict. For example, subsidizing fossil fuels increases production, but pollutes the environment. Deregulation can increase competition, but depletes resources and pollutes the environment.